The turkey wasn't even carved yet when my mother stood up at the head of the table and pointed at me. Her voice cut through the clatter of forks and polite holiday chatter like a blade. $60,000 missing from the family safe, and she knew exactly who took it. My father's hand tightened around his glass. My aunt whispered something to my uncle. Every eye at that table turned to me. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but before a single word came out, the front door opened and in walked Detective Marcus Reyes, my childhood best friend, now a fraud investigator. He looked at my mother, then at me, then at the safe, and he already knew who really took it. The accusation hung in the air like smoke from a candle nobody would blow out. $60,000, a family safe that only 4 people knew the code to, and every single finger at that table pointed straight at me. But Detective Marcus Reyes didn't look at me. He looked at the floor. He looked at his shoes. Then he looked at my father. That was the moment I realized this wasn't a family dinner that had gone wrong. This was a trap that had been set long before the turkey hit the table. To understand why Marcus walked through that door knowing the truth, you have to understand the 3 decades of secrets hiding behind the smile in our family photo. The Reyes family moved in across the street when I was 7. Marcus was 9, already taller than every kid on the block, with a quiet way of watching people that made adults uncomfortable, and kids trust him instantly. We built forts in the creek behind our houses, traded baseball cards on his porch, and learned each other's family secrets the way only children do, by noticing what adults tried to hide. His father worked nights. My father worked the family business. And both of us understood that the smiles our parents wore in public were costumes. My family owned Caldwell Home Goods, a chain of 4 stores spread across 3 counties. My grandfather started the first one in 1972 with a single aisle of discount cookware and a hand-painted sign. By the time I was born, the stores were the backbone of our town's retail corridor. Everybody knew the Caldwell name. Everybody shopped there for wedding gifts, back-to-school bedding, and the cheap coffee makers that broke after 6 months. My father ran the company. My mother ran the image. She was the one who made sure we sat in the front pew at church, donated the right amount to the right causes, and never let a single crack show in the family portrait. But inside our house, the rules were different. Money was a weapon, not a tool. My father controlled every dollar. My mother controlled every decision about how that dollar was seen. I learned early that asking for new shoes meant a lecture about gratitude. That earning an A- meant a conversation about laziness. That the safe in my father's study, a heavy black Sentry safe bolted to the floor behind a false panel in the closet, was the real altar of our family. I saw him open it exactly 3 times in my entire childhood. Once to pull out a stack of cash for a down payment on a new store. Once to retrieve my grandmother's jewelry after she died. And once to count the $60,000 he bragged about keeping there for emergencies. I was 12 the last time I saw inside it. I never forgot the number. Marcus, on the other hand, saw things I didn't. He noticed that my mother's voice went tight every time the business came up at dinner. He noticed that my father drank more on Sundays when the week's sales numbers came in. He noticed that I flinched when anyone mentioned money. We were 16 when he asked me, point blank, if my parents ever hurt me. I said no because I didn't know the right word for what they did. They never hit me. They just made sure I knew I was a burden, a disappointment, a line item they wished they could write off. That was the year the first store closed, the one in Millbrook. My father blamed the big box retailer that opened on the highway. My mother blamed the economy. I blamed the tension that had started seeping through the walls like water through a cracked foundation. They stopped hosting dinner parties. They stopped donating to the church. They stopped pretending altogether. By the time I left for college, the Caldwell name still carried weight in town, but the weight was sinking. I moved 3 states away. I changed my number. I only came back for funerals. And I never, not once, set foot inside that house after the day I loaded my last box into a U-Haul. But the safe stayed in my mind. $60,000, an emergency fund. A number that had sat in that metal box through boom years and bust years, untouched, untouchable, until the day my mother decided to open it and found nothing but air. The accusation at Thanksgiving didn't come out of nowhere. It came from years of suspicion, years of my parents blaming someone, anyone, for their failures. And I was the easiest target because I was the one who got out. I was the one who built a life without their money, their approval, their rules. In their minds, that made me guilty of the one thing they could never forgive: independence. Marcus stood in the doorway of my parents' dining room, still wearing his department jacket, his badge clipped to his belt. He didn't look at the table. He didn't look at the safe. He looked at me, and in that look was everything we had never said to each other in 30 years of friendship. Then he turned to my father and spoke 4 words that shattered the room. "Can we talk privately?" My father's face went pale. My mother's fork clattered against her plate. And I knew, in that instant, that Marcus had not come to arrest me. He had come to protect me from whatever my parents had really done with that $60,000. But the question that hit me like a fist to the chest was this: how long had he known, and why had he waited until now to walk through that door? Marcus closed the study door behind us, and the sound of the latch clicking into place felt like a lock turning on a vault I had been standing inside for 30 years. He didn't sit. He stood with his back to the wall, arms crossed, the way he used to stand when we were kids, and he was about to tell me something I didn't want to hear. "Your father called me 3 weeks ago," he said. "Not the police department, me, personally." 3 weeks. That meant before Thanksgiving. That meant before the accusation at the table. That meant my parents had planned this. Marcus let the silence stretch, watching my face for the moment I would understand. "He told me the money was missing, told me he suspected you, asked if I could look into it quietly, off the books, as a favor to an old neighbor." Marcus paused. "I told him I couldn't do that if he wanted to file a report, he'd have to go through proper channels." "Then why are you here now?" He pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket. A bank statement, not from Caldwell Home Goods, from a separate account I had never seen. The name on the account was my mother's maiden name, and the transactions told a story my father had clearly never been told. "She's been moving money out of the business for 18 months, Marcus said. "Small amounts at first, 3,000 here, 5,000 there, always in cash, always on days when the deposits were light. She was careful, but not careful enough. The bank flagged a pattern 6 weeks ago. By the time I pulled the thread, the total came to exactly $62,400. My mother, the one who pointed at me across the turkey, the one who cried about betrayal while her hands were still sticky from the embezzlement. Marcus explained that she had been funneling money to cover gambling debts. Debts my father didn't know about, debts that had started small during the downturn of the business and snowballed into something that threatened everything they had left. When she realized the bank might catch it, she needed a scapegoat, Marcus said. Someone the family would believe. Someone who had already left, already burned bridges, already been cast as the ungrateful child. That was you. The study felt smaller. The walls pressed in. I thought about every holiday I had skipped, every phone call I had ignored, every reason I had given myself to stay far away from this house. I had thought distance protected me. I had thought silence was safety. But my mother had been building a story about me for months, laying the foundation for this moment, preparing the table where she would serve me up as the sacrifice. How did you prove it? Marcus pulled out his phone and showed me a video security footage from the gas station 2 blocks from the last remaining store. The timestamp showed 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. My mother, alone, unlocking the store after hours, carrying a duffel bag, walking out 40 minutes later with the bag visibly fuller. She told my father she was meeting with a liquidator, but the liquidator doesn't exist. I checked. Marcus put the phone away. I came here today to stop her from destroying you in front of your whole family, but I also came because I needed to see her face when she realized she'd been caught. The door rattled behind us. My father's voice, sharp and thin. "What's going on in there?" Marcus opened the door, stepped into the hallway, and in a voice loud enough for everyone in the dining room to hear, he said, "I need everyone to come into the study, please, all of you." I watched my mother's face as she walked past me. It was a mask, calm, composed, the same expression she wore to church and parent-teacher conferences. But her hands were shaking. She knew. She had known the moment Marcus walked through the front door that her house of cards was about to collapse. And in that moment, I understood something that cut deeper than any accusation ever could. My mother had not just stolen money. She had stolen the one thing I had spent 20 years building, my peace. and she had almost gotten away with it. My father stood in the doorway, confused, angry, looking between his wife and his daughter like he was watching a car crash in slow motion. Marcus waited until everyone was quiet, then held up the bank statement and the security photo. "There's been a misunderstanding about the missing money," he said. "I think we should clear it up right now." The room went silent. My mother's mask cracked, and the truth that had been buried under decades of family lies finally began to claw its way to the surface. My mother stared at the paper in Marcus's hand like it was a snake coiled to strike. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She did something far more disturbing. She laughed. A dry, hollow sound that bounced off the study walls and made my father take a step backward. "You think you're so clever, Marcus," she said. "You think you've figured it all out, but you only know half of it." She walked to the safe, spun the dial with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times, and pulled the door open. Empty. She had known it was empty. She had emptied it herself. But then she reached deeper into a compartment behind the false back and pulled out a second stack of papers. She held them up like a trophy. 62,000 gone to gambling. That part is true, but your father has been hiding something from you too, sweetheart. She turned to him. "Go ahead. Tell her what you've been doing with the other 40,000. My father's face drained of color. His mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. And in that terrible silence, I realized the full scope of what had been happening under the roof of the house I had fled. This wasn't one person stealing. This was a partnership of secrets. He had been paying a private investigator for 2 years, not to follow my mother, to follow me. Every time I changed my number, he found the new one. Every time I moved apartments, he had the address. Every time I posted a new client logo on my studio's website, he had a file on it. He had been tracking my life, my career, my marriage, without ever telling me. And he had been paying for it with cash from the business, cash he never entered in the books, cash he took in increments of $500 and $1,000 at a time. "Why?" The word came out of me barely above a whisper. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. "Because you left," he said. "Because you cut us off. I wanted to know you were okay. I wanted to know if you ever planned to come back. You hired a private detective to stalk your own daughter because she wouldn't call you on Christmas." Marcus stepped between us. "That's not all." He had been scrolling through his phone while my parents argued, and now he held it up. "The pie your father hired, he's been feeding information to your mother for the last 6 months. She paid him to tell her everything your father was hiding, so she knew about the surveillance. She knew about the cash withdrawals, and she used that knowledge to control the narrative." The room tilted. I grabbed the edge of the desk. My parents had been running a covert war against each other, using the business as a battlefield and me as the prize neither one actually wanted. The $60,000 was just the surface wound. Beneath it was a decade of distrust, deceit, and a family system so broken that the only way anyone knew how to communicate was through spies and stolen money and public accusations at holiday dinners. Marcus put his phone away and faced both of them. "I came here today to stop an innocent person from being charged with a crime she didn't commit, but now I have to report what I've found. There will be an investigation, not just into the missing money, into the fraud, the surveillance, and the obstruction. All 3 of you are going to have to answer for your choices." My father collapsed into the chair behind the desk. My mother stood frozen, the smile gone from her face. And I stood between them, the daughter who had escaped, the one who had thought leaving meant freedom. But I was still tangled in their mess. I was still the thread they pulled when they needed someone to blame. The truth had surfaced, but it had not set me free. It had only shown me how deep the rot ran. And the hardest part was yet to come, the part where I had to decide whether to walk away from them forever or stay long enough to make sure the wreckage didn't bury me alongside them. The investigation took 6 months. Marcus kept me updated through encrypted messages, the same way we had passed notes as kids, only now the notes contained discovery deadlines and plea offer timelines instead of baseball scores and lunch plans. My mother was charged with embezzlement and attempted fraud. My father was charged with obstruction and illegal surveillance. The state seized the remaining assets of Caldwell Home Goods to pay restitution and legal fees. The house went into foreclosure. The family name, the one my grandfather had painted on that hand-lettered sign in 1972, was gone. I did not return for the trial. I watched it from my studio in Denver, 3 time zones away, with Max curled at my feet and Alex's hand on my shoulder. The local news covered it for 2 days before the next scandal pushed it off the front page. The daughter who had been accused at Thanksgiving became the footnote, the ghost at the table, the one who got out and never looked back. But that wasn't entirely true. I looked back one more time, and what I found there changed everything I thought I knew. 3 weeks after the sentencing, a package arrived at my studio. No return address. Inside was a small spiral notebook, the kind my mother used to keep in her purse. The pages were filled with her handwriting, dates, amounts, names. It was a ledger of every dollar she had taken, every bet she had placed, every lie she had told. And tucked into the back cover was a letter, written to me, dated the day before the Thanksgiving dinner. She admitted everything, the gambling, the frame, the years of manipulation. But she also wrote something I never expected. She said she had started taking money not because she wanted to, but because my father had threatened to leave her after the business started failing. He had told her that if she didn't find a way to cover their debts, he would divorce her and take everything. She panicked. She gambled, hoping to double the money. She lost. And then she kept digging deeper and deeper until the hole swallowed her whole. She ended the letter with 3 words, "I am sorry." I sat in my studio for an hour, holding that notebook, trying to feel something: anger, relief, sadness. But all I felt was the weight of a story I had spent my whole life trying to outrun. The villain of my childhood had been my mother, but the truth was messier than that. She was also a victim of the same system she had helped build. The same fear of failure, the same hunger for control, the same desperate need to appear perfect while everything crumbled around her. I never replied to her letter. I never visited her in prison. I made a choice that was the hardest one I had ever made. I closed the chapter without reading the final page. The notebook went into a drawer in my desk, next to the sketchbook Mark had given me on the night of my adoption, and I went back to work. Marcus called a month after the sentencing. He had left the department and started his own private investigation firm, specializing in financial fraud. He asked if I would be willing to speak at a training seminar he was putting together for law enforcement, a case study on family embezzlement and false accusations. I said yes. The first training was held in a small conference room in downtown Denver, and I stood in front of 20 detectives and told them the story of the Thanksgiving table. Not the version I had rehearsed for therapy, but the real version, the ugly version. The one where I admitted that I had almost believed my parents' lies about me because it was easier than believing they could be that broken. After the seminar, a young detective approached me. She told me that her own family had been torn apart by a similar accusation, and that hearing my story had given her permission to stop believing the version her parents had written. We hugged in the parking lot, 2 strangers connected by the same wound. And I understood, finally, what Mark had meant when he said that some people only look for the bridge after they have burned the house down. I had not returned to save my parents. I had returned to save the part of myself that still believed I was the one who had done something wrong. The final surprising detail came 6 months later. Alex was cleaning out the garage and found a box of old mail that had been forwarded from my old address. Among the bills and catalogs was a letter postmarked the same week as the Thanksgiving dinner. It was from a lawyer I had never heard of. Inside was a copy of my father's will, the one he had updated exactly 1 year before the money went missing. In it, he left me the family business, all 4 stores, the inventory, the real estate. The liabilities. He wanted me to inherit the whole crumbling empire. He had never told me. He had been paying that private investigator to find me because he wanted to ask if I would accept it, not to stalk me, not to control me, to offer me the one thing he thought would prove he believed in me. I never signed the papers. I never claimed the inheritance. The stores were dissolved, the debts paid from the sale of the house, but I kept that letter. I put it in the drawer next to my mother's notebook. And for the first time in my life, I understood that my parents had both loved me and failed me at the same time. They were not monsters. They were people who had been broken long before they broke me. And I was the one who had to choose whether that knowledge set me free or trapped me further. I closed the drawer. I walked back to my desk. I picked up a pencil and started drawing a woman standing on a mountaintop with no one behind her, and I smiled. Because after everything, I had finally found my way home. Not to Willow Creek, not to that house, but to the person I had always been, buried under years of shame and silence. The girl at Union Station had survived, and the woman she became was ready for whatever came next. The girl at Union Station survived because she learned something most people never have to learn: that the people who are supposed to protect you can be the ones who hurt you most. And that learning to trust again is not a weakness. It is the bravest thing a person can do. What happened at that Thanksgiving table was not unique. Families across the country are sitting down to dinners right now where accusations are simmering beneath the surface, where scapegoats are being prepared, where one person's truth is being sacrificed for the comfort of everyone else in the room. The $60,000 was just the catalyst. The real story was about what happens when families stop being sanctuaries and start being systems of control. I think about Marcus sometimes, not the detective who showed up at the door, but the 9-year-old boy who taught me that loyalty meant showing up when it mattered. He showed up that day. He did his job. And then he went back to his life, and I went back to mine. We exchanged texts on birthdays. We never talk about the case. We don't have to. Alex still asks me if I regret not visiting my mother in prison. I tell him no, not because I'm angry, because I made a choice to stop letting her story define mine. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. You can forgive someone and still keep your distance. You can understand why they broke and still refuse to let them hand you the pieces. The drawing I finished that night, the woman on the mountaintop, now hangs in my studio, framed next to the original sketchbook Mark gave me. Clients ask about it sometimes. I tell them it's a self-portrait, and I leave it at that. If you are watching this and you recognize something in this story, if you have been the one sitting at a table while everyone else pointed fingers, if you have been told your truth was too inconvenient to believe, let me tell you what I wish someone had told me at 12 years old. You are not what they say you are. Their accusations are not your identity. Walking away is not failure. It is survival. And survival is the first step toward building a life that belongs only to you. The family you choose can be stronger than the family you were born into. The peace you build on your own terms is worth more than any inheritance you could inherit. And the hardest truth of all is also the most freeing one. You do not have to go back to prove anything. You only have to go forward. Thanks for watching. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more stories that dig beneath the surface of what families hide, hit subscribe. The table is set. The truth is on the menu, and you are always welcome at this one.